So, welcome back to Night Flight. And as you can see, Masaki Miyagawa is back, and we will talk about a very wild cosmic ride that is ahead of us. So, Masaki, welcome.
Hey Judith, I'm glad to be back and wow, 2026, we're in it now.
We're in it. We're in it. Yeah, definitely. Where do you want to kick it off? Shall we start with the fact that it is a 1 year, or well, I'm.
Yeah, we could start with the numerology. Do you want me to pull up the notes I have?
You can, if you wish.
Okay.
That's
Okay. Then
up.
then then the audience can see. Can you see this?
Yeah.
The 2026. So, in numerology, every year has a year count. So the cycle goes 1 to 9. So it's a 9 year cycle. Um, and they follow each number corresponds to sort of like a different archetype. And 2026, 2 plus 2 plus 6 is 1. So I guess you would say it's 10, but then you reduce it. 1 plus 0 is 1. So this is the first year of the cycle. And the 1 year sets the trend for the entire cycle. So we're only like a quarter into the year. We're not even halfway through. So you can imagine, I think the themes of war, scarcity, political upheaval are going to be going on until the early 2030s. So 9 years out would be 2034. So I mark specifically, so we're in 2026, 1 year. I mark specifically 2029 and 2033 may be the next significant years. Like every year will be significant, but as far as really dramatic things, because the year corresponds to Aquarius Uranus energy, and especially the number 29. This is numbers, but it corresponds to the anaretic degree or the 29th degree in astrology. With that number 29, it represents it's like the most tension, most pressure of the entire all of numbers, I would say, in numerology. So I don't know if there's another level to the an escalation to the warfare that happens in that year. And then in 2033, the 8 represents to Saturn Capricorn. That's why if you know any Chinese, they love the number 8. Like you'll see 888 seafood restaurant because 8 is Saturn Capricorn, but Saturn rules business and money. So they see it as a money number, but in a more simpler terms, 8 represents, Saturn. It's the karmic payout from the rest of the cycle. So if you've been doing, say, example, if in business or work, if you've been doing things correctly in a methodical way, in you're progressing, you can see a bump in income that year. So if we talk about world events, we may see the 9 years is a completion, but in the 8 year, we may see a cumulative karmic payout of whatever happens in 2033. But I'm sure you've heard similar things that a lot of what's happening right now, I've heard from other readers that it seems like the majority of it will be done by like 2030. Like they're saying Earth changes and so forth. So I would mark down like 2029 as a year that like some unusual events may happen.
Hmm.
you know. And Aquarius Uranus being ruling the aliens and interdimensional, high strange, and also things being turned upside down. Uh, that could happen. Example, if you think back to 2020, 2 plus 2 equals 4. It was another 4 year where the world was turned upside down, and particularly 22 from 2022. It's oh, I mean 2020. So there's two twos in there. The 22 is the master builder number. So maybe that was the start of the global reset, right? Because the 22 is a big plan or project that takes usually multiple years to complete. So maybe what's happening now is phase two of the Great Reset. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Makes sense.
So, looking at it from numerology, we can clearly see that it's telling us that from this year we're entering a new phase that lasts 9 years. Now, if I page down, and I want to go back to something that people may have forgotten, the grand conjunction when Jupiter and Saturn, they appeared almost like a star in the sky. That hadn't happened for um and especially they said it being that bright, it hadn't happened for hundreds of years. I looked up online. They were saying in the 1600s, but they were saying that particular conjunction being that visible and that bright, it's basically like the star that rose above baby Jesus. So uh, the that conjunction was particularly significant, and I talked to some Vedic astrologers that said that the energies of 2020, the whole COVID experience, were particularly dark, and it hadn't happened for at least 2,000 years, and we got through that. Like the worst case scenario did not happen. And so the grand conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn starting in 2020, they will be going back and forth. The energies of Jupiter expansion and Saturn contraction or restriction will be going back and forth for 20 years to about, 2040. So it's not like, I mean, if you look at the news, it's pretty apocalyptic. And I would say that this is the event that people have been waiting for generations, but it's not all negative. This kind of challenge is what really activates the impulse for freedom and to get people really thinking, just like the COVID experience, right? So we're going through another iteration of that. Uh, you could also say that when materially things become weak or you're in scarcity, the spirit becomes strong, you know? So you could, that might maybe just a product of people being shaken out of their daily routine and they don't have the material things to distract them and they start looking inward out of necessity. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to
You
bring
know what
bring that
also
up, man.
corresponds with that energy that you just mentioned? We will have Uranus in Gemini that is going to settle
Yeah.
in April. There. Right now, it's still retrograde. We
Yeah.
had a little preview of that last year, and during that period, What we saw was that Nepal and Madagascar overthrew their governments. And what we are, and Uranus in Gemini was also during 1942 to 1949. So also a warlike
Yep.
situation. Yeah. And if you go back a little bit further, yeah, a little a little bit much further, in 1444, the printing press was
Hmm.
came to the forefront. It was invented, and that was also during Uranus in Gemini, and that that entire energy carries a lot of also innovation, what has to do with communication and
Yes.
technology in general. So I'm pretty sure we will see great strides there.
You know, the United States of America is having a triple return this year. They're having the the last phase of the Pluto return. There is a Uranus return and a Chiron return. So America's in for it. But America is the chosen global leader of the last century, and there will be a revolution. And for the new global leader or the new world to be born, the old world has to be destroyed. So we can clearly see, whether he knows it or not, Trump having Sun conjunct Uranus, he's like the born chaos magician. He's like the chaos master. He's destroying the position of the US by his actions, whether he knows it or not, or he's being told what to do by his advisors. So we are definitely in the age of rebellion and revolution,
Mhm.
but the powers that be knows this too. That's why they're trying to guide it in the guide and how do you say, manipulate the revolution to what they want. And so, like I said, this will be going back and forth for years. So I think we should take note of the archetypes, the signs and symbols, understand where we are, and we can play the game better than people that don't know any of the cycles, right?
Yeah.
So I was looking into the feng shui. It's saying we were talking about revolutions and so forth. It was saying very similar things to the astrology, especially this year being the fire horse and 2027 being the fire goat. They're associated with revolutions and the rise and fall of dynasties in China. Uh, Period 8, which ended in 2024, um, it rules the young man, and that's associated with like the migrants because there are a lot of the young men. Uh, it was relatively stable, and the prosperity direction was northeast, which rules China and South Korea's in that area. Also, you saw the rise of the K-pop, popularity of Korean culture, and basically from 2004, I would say China started to hit problems around 2020, but for like a 20-year run, more or less, China could not fail. They would have to try to mess up because they had that energy going with them. Now, from 2024, so we're like 2 years into the last cycle of the 180-year Chinese calendar, right? The prosperity direction is south. So that would rule. um, Latin America, especially South America, Africa, and because there's certain qualities associated with South, it would also rule islands and resort areas. So it's not like all of Africa will be peaceful. Like there's going to be ups and downs, but in general, they should be on a upward track relative to other regions, especially Western Europe and America and Canada,
Hmm.
you know, because Europe is one cycle behind America, or you could say America's one cycle after Europe. That's why the West, when it was running full steam, it kind of had an unfair advantage because Europe was getting prosperous, and then America you had after, so that you had like a 40-year block of uncontested power, you know? But now it's going down. So what you're seeing in Europe, America is moving towards. You're just 20 years ahead of us, you know? Um, and it rules the middle-aged woman, fame and recognition, and multiple streams of income. So you could see a lot of women from, let's say, the 40s and up, like maybe 35 to, I don't know, 55, 60, really start doing some interesting things. But the key thing is, look at this. This is fire element, right? And we're in the fire horse and fire goat 2026, 2027, and fire energy, it's not stable, right? So it kind of plays into the Aquarian energies coming in. It's very dramatic, right? Uh, Also, there's an impulse for freedom, right? That could play into protests, revolutions, uh, and that also that Gemini energy, which is mutable. It's like always changing. I kind of relate it to the that fire element, but it says it lasts. It's a 20-year block, so 2024 to 2044. You know, people can figure that into their possible relocation plans if they're looking into that. If there's a country in the global south or in some tropical area or resort area that fits with your chart, you know, you can look at astrocartography to map your fortune lines on the globe. This might be interesting information to take note of. So, yeah, and I also noted that it's moving the period nine, the last cycle in the feng shui that we're in now, also goes from hierarchies to networks, and
Mm.
that's the theme that's repeated again in Pluto and Aquarius. And you know, I
Yeah.
noted that the fire element is unstable, so you have to be adaptable and be able to adjust. So it actually, although it will be, you know, it could be materially difficult, or it could be, you know, Geminis will love it. I mean, they're in their element, you know, people there can adjust, but even though it may not be steady and predictable, it could be very interesting for people that understand this. And you know, I'm triple fixed. I'm Scorpio, Sun, Taurus, Rising, Taurus, Moon. You talk about like it's really difficult for me to change, even if I want to. But I feel like I have no problem with this because it's like so clear that you're gonna have to be flexible. You know, I'm American, but I have the Japanese influence. I think Germans and Japanese are similar in that way. There's like a fixed schedule. Not anymore. Like if you've ever been to, I think you've been to Africa, right? And
Yeah, many
I
times.
I used to go to Brazil a lot, and I really had to adjust because in Brazil, the schedule is just a suggestion. You have to have multiple, you have to have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C because usually the plan A is going to be disregarded. So just keep that in mind. That's we're entering into a revolutionary phase. So, the stability of the American empire, it's going away, A lot of that stability came out of America guaranteeing the safe passage of ships on the seas. And what's happening right now? I don't believe that it's all planned out, but that being such a critical pinch point in global commerce, I do believe that at a higher level, there's some element of planning. Otherwise, why would both sides, everything they're doing fits biblical prophecy? The Abrahamics would say, well, it fits because it's the truth. But what if they create prophecy or they manage global events to fit the script?
Yeah,
And that's referenced in Dune, right? The witches, the Bene Gesserit witches, they made the prophecy of the Messiah so they could control the planets when they need to. The Messiah arises when the time is right, right? So uh, just keep in mind that the Parliament of Iran, it's shaped like a pyramid and it has 33 windows. Are they really Islamic? It's like clearly there's a beef, there's a real grudge at the 3D, like the base level, the lowest level. But at the higher level, you would not have Judaism, you would not have Islam, you would not have Christianity without the Zoroastrians. They came up with monotheism, they came up with the linear timeline, and they came up with the prophecies of the end times. And they came up with basically the martyr, the jihadi before, you know, the Abrahamic religions or Islam even existed. They were also a very big component of the modern secret society, came
mm,
from Shia Islam, right? And the famous tagline is nothing is true, everything is permitted. That's the assassins, right? The Hashishans. So it has that element of Sabbatean inversion in it, right? So I just look at I think people are focusing too much on Gaza and the Palestinians and Israel, and it's like a football match. You're cheering for the teams, and obviously the Palestinians are being genocided, but that's the point. It's polarization, and they want you to play their game, right? So if you're thinking it's just Israel and Muslims, uh, I think it's pretty clear the Zionists are sacrificing Israel right now because there's a greater game going on.
and what would that be, that greater game?
Uh, it's the AI reality.
Okay.
Like Greater Israel, it's not Greater Israel in the Middle East. It's the whole planet. So and you can go into the AI and all that, but the Zionists could disappear, but if their version of the AI reality dominates, then it's endgame, right? So that's what people. I think if you ask around, it's a far minority that is even thinking about artificial intelligence in relation to the war in the Gulf. But it's actually like a top priority for what's going on because, again, destroying the old system and bringing in a new system. And if you look at the BRICS, they did all the COVID protocols. Even North Korea, which is like the most isolated country. And contrary to what you might hear online, I talked to some Russians and people were dying in Russia from the Sputnik vaccine, and people in China were dying from the Sinovac. And they're not opposed to digital ID. They're doing the digital ID, they're doing the digital cash, everything. So, how different is the BRICS, which is basically China, from the bad colonizer America?
Yeah, I never put much hope on the BRICS nations.
Uh-huh.
I always thought that at the end of the day, they are not very different.
And as if you look into China, I would say this, all of these governments are in trouble. The governments that are opposed to each other, they're in trouble.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
this war, it really benefited the mullahs in Iran because they're, Iranians, most of them, they they're not hardcore Islamics. They want to
No, they are done with it,
they
completely
they,
done. The
they
majority. They,
until this war.
no, 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 no,
Uh,
no. Mm-mm. That is not the case. They are not flipping. I have heard audio from
uh,
Iran, what sometimes they can send out something, and where somebody said, "Well, actually." Um, we are frightened when the boom boom is not going on
oh,
because we think that the Americans will leave us.
well, I will say that it increased the position of the government because just as a national directive, but it I'm telling you it does, and it makes Iran now the center of Islam, you know? It's no longer like Saudi Arabia. The longer this goes on, it's a increase in the radicalization, I would say, which benefits who? I think the controllers.
Yeah, but I don't see that the regime has maybe 5 to 10% support among the population, not more. So I don't see any radicalization. In fact, I have seen so much footage, a woman was driving to, yeah, she came from somewhere and was driving to her house, and then she saw that another building was flattened. And then she said, yeah, probably we didn't even know what was there. I wonder what they flattened there. And then all of a sudden, you heard the muezzin call, yeah?
Mhm.
And the second she heard that, it was shut up.
Mhm.
So they are
Well,
so done with it. Mm-mm.
many. many expat or like overseas Persians, they're actually mini Zionists because they see Israel as the only way to kick out the Islamic regime. But again, in my mind, now is it all constructed and is it all planned out? Like, no. But the current government in Iran was installed by the West, you know? So I think it's a global stage play at some level, just like China being opened up by Daddy Bush and the Rockefellers, you know, and you always have to have an enemy to create the narrative to control the populace,
Mm.
right? Yeah. Just like when I was living in China and the US bombed the Chinese embassy in Belgrade. That was when it was Yugoslavia, and they said it was by accident. It's, it's no accident, you know. And then the Chinese government, they organized large student protests, and they bust them to the American embassy to throw things. But you're only allowed to throw like one water bottle or something. And there's Chinese soldiers with machine guns. They said, okay, that's enough. Like next student, okay, now you can throw one thing. And they always use, although that was like a legitimate grievance, but whenever the pressure in China gets too much, they point at the foreigners and especially Japan. The war's been over for 80 years, but all the anger that they would release, the Chinese public would release on the government is safely released against a foreign enemy, you know? So let's see here. Okay, so we had Saturn and Neptune conjunct switch into Aries. And the period we're in now is particularly significant because those outer planets, say starting from Saturn, like Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, Pluto, those are the generational planets.
Yeah.
So they move very slow, but in doing so, it's like you can shift like it's like a generational character. Like we talk about the generations of the boomers is like Pluto and Leo, right? And then we have Gen X, Pluto and Libra, and the millennials, Pluto and Scorpio, and then Gen Z, I think they're Pluto and Capricorn. But these generations have very distinct characters because of the outer planets.
What,
So
what
the
you just said,
uh
Pluto in Capricorn and with governments, I heard a fascinating story today, and I thought that was really encouraging. Um, Next year, we are going to have elections in Kenya, yeah?
uh-huh.
And in all of East Africa, one problem is that the election always gets rigged. Yeah.
Oh, surprising.
Yeah, surprising. Mm. And sometimes there are huge uprisings. I remember I was there in 2007,
Uh-huh.
8. I came in January 8, curfew and 1,200 people dead, 150,000 displaced, and the whole nine yards, yeah, after the election. So now, a young gentleman, a Gen Z, yeah,
Uh-huh.
he came up with the idea and said, "No, no, no, we are not going to do this." So he built an app, and he built a public. um, IEBC. The IEBC is the Electoral Commission in Kenya. They are the ones who proclaim what is who is the winner. And everybody knows that from the telling station to the IEBC, that is where the votes get messed up. Yeah, so he came out and built an app. His public iebc.org, but it is depending also on 55,000 people participating because there are 55,000 polling stations. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, and then once the votes are counted, they post it outside of the telling station
Hmm.
it has a barcode, not barcode, what do you call these?
QR codes.
QR codes, exactly. So, and then he says you take a photo of that and then you send it to this app. And so we can see the election results in real time. No more 3 a.m. announcements by the
Hmm.
IEBC who is going to be the winner. The people themselves will watch it. He also has um, uh, provided a workaround in case that the internet gets shut down because that is
Hmm.
very popular in Africa during election time, shutting down the internet. And then, okay, you can still take the photo anyway, and you send it to this app, and it has a storage capacity. So, which means sooner or later they have to open the internet again because otherwise businesses fall apart and what have you. So, and in that moment, all the data is flooding in.
Hmm.
And I know that President Ruto is not very happy about this, but he says this is then we have something tangible that we can take to court
Right.
instead of riots and people are getting shot in the streets and people get displaced. And I thought that is really interesting that this younger generation, they don't even ask permission, they just build the app and then they go out.
Well, they're far less emotional, especially Pluto and Capricorn, and they're like little business people. You see reports of these children, really, like 9 years old, and they already have a business, you know. So it's said that they're the generation that will rebuild after the collapse. And the millennials, Pluto and Scorpio, they just wanted to burn it down, but they didn't understand, like, okay, well, you have to have something to replace it with.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but millennials, as a generality, they tend to have the same characteristics as the boomers, is they innately trust authority, right? Because they were the people that were masking during COVID, and they're also,
I'm a
not
boomer.
all,
I'm a boomer. I never trusted authority.
they were also the so-called woke and the gender stuff and all that. Not all of them, but as a generation, right?
Mm.
Um, let's see. Here we go. So we were in Saturn in, was it Neptune? We
Saturn
we
and
were
Neptune in Aries, they went conjunct on 20th of February at 0 degrees of Aries, which the last time it happened
Hmm.
was 7000 BC. So
There you go.
we really had a Genesis moment this year.
And the Neptunian energies, like Pisces, Neptune, it rules the kind of like the downtrodden. So it's associated with refugees and migrants, and uh, Jesus is the fish man. He's a Neptune Pisces figure. So it's like we're all one and be forgiving. Not when you move into Aries. So now we're moving into a phase where it's you're not going to see the room given, like giving the migrants room to, like, well, they don't understand the rules and we just got to give them more benefits. It's going to be the complete opposite.
Mm.
uh Also, Aries is the first sign. It's you're supposed to be unforgiving and egotistical in the kind of like the positive, or it's the drive to define the self, right? So whereas Neptune Pisces, it lacks the self-confidence. Aries is, you are here to manifest alone on your own. So if there's things you wanted to do, or you had some ideas, maybe a business plan, this is really the time to activate it. Put the fire of manifestation to make it real. And Saturn being sort of like organized and business oriented, uh, it's the day by day step, putting in the steps of progression to build the foundation to achieve the structure of the business or the plan or the career of what you want to do. So things are going to move fast, especially. I mean, they're already moving fast, but when Uranus and Gemini goes direct, it'll be really fast because Aries, it's like sprinter energy, and Gemini's like quick. So the next couple of years they'll pass very quick because there'll be no room to take a break, really. I don't think that there's any Earth element until like 2029 or something like that. So it's going to be an interesting period. So yeah, yeah, it's good to have some kind of general plan in this time, especially with like I was saying, Saturn in Aries. It's really structure and put your plans into action. But also, Gemini is one of those signs where if you don't have a plan, because it's mutable, right? It's
Mm.
it's 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 very interesting. It can be exciting because it's all something's always happening. But if you don't have a plan, you don't have to plan like every day or every week, but maybe every quarter. You can say like, I want to have this done by the summer or something like that, right? If you don't have a plan, you could end up in the same place 3 years from now. So it's we're like in a mutable, unstable period. And because of that, you should have some kind of general idea of where you want to take things and also plan ahead. Maybe food, supplies, and those things. So it's also good to you really should have done this already, but it still applies. You need to clear out old baggage and put old things to bed to clear out space for the new things to come in because hey, there's a lot of us that have been beat up, you know, in life.
Mm,
Maybe some of there's some project people out there. It's a lot to deal with. So if you haven't dealt with that, you're not going to be as able to enact the new thing, right?
mm,
So you really should. I'll put it to you this way. I'm not saying there's no time left, but things are going to go so quick to try to handle your own baggage and your own traumas, right? It's going to be extra difficult now because the world and things you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis are going to be coming so quick, right? So, those of you that have been peeling the onion and doing your self work, like, good job, because if people try to do it now, it's going to be really difficult, right? It's like having a huge boulder fall on you rather than peeling the onion over years.
mm.
Um, so, and then Neptune
Well,
and Aries.
what you are just that is so interesting when you look back in history. A lot of when Neptune and Saturn and Pluto, for instance, were
Mhm,
in conjunction in Capricorn, we had the Reformation.
mhm,
Yeah, and then when Saturn and Neptune were conjunct, the Berlin Wall came up and it came down when those two planets were conjunct. Not in 0 degrees of Aries, but it is always interesting to see the two dance together. Then always something very significant happens. And also coming back to Iran, you had a Saturn Neptune conjunction in 1953 when the US overthrew the democratically elected president, installed the Shah.
mhm.
And then in 1989, when Khomeini died of natural causes, and so that his rulership came to an end. That was also during Saturn-Neptune conjunction. And now we have 2026, and another chapter is being written in Iran again.
And Aries is associated with Aryan,
Yeah,
and Iran
yeah,
is literally Aryan.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
what Iran Shah and Iran is a reference to Aryan.
Hmm.
And so we had Saturn in Aries, and it was conjunct with Neptune in Aries. Neptune was also went into Aries. So that is, Neptune Pisces being the realm of dreams, right? So it's literally make your dreams come true. I mean, it's conjunct also with Saturn, Neptune and Saturn conjunct, both going into Aries. So the thing is, uh, a good idea or a dream is only abstract in your head. You need to put in the steps to make it a reality. And that is this time. And I know many people, including myself, that could have probably done more in past years, but it's all coming into focus now where we're really ready. It's clear that we're really ready to put it into action. So the things that you've had ideas about or uh, kind of contemplated in your head. Well, now it's really time to put it into action. Also, Pisces being the sign of the Abrahamic religions, Jesus is literally the fish man, right?
Mm.
You could Neptune in Aries, you could see uh like a Christ-like, like in especially in America. It's already happening. I believe it's also being guided because people like Peter Thiel are pushing a flavor of Christianity. Trump rode off of the fundamentalist Christian base. Even Trump now is falling out of favor, but the Christian thing is not going away. Especially this war in the Middle East is revolving around Abrahamic eschatology.
Hmm.
The Judaism and the Islamics and the Christians, they basically all agree on the same script. The only difference is each one believes that their Messiah is going to win, which is a little bit concerning. We have end times freaks running global politics, but that's what it is. And Aries is also associated with racism. So you've already been seeing it, and again, is being promoted by the algorithms, but you'll see more and more open, another word for racism is tribalism. And
Hmm.
that will have its good sides and its bad sides. And often when, the economy gets worse, people get more closed-minded and tribalistic. So I mean, I think everyone sees it, but that plays into this trend. And we're just starting it. So it's going to become more and more intense. Like, basically, right now, we're in a war um, of the Zionists and Zion, esoteric Israel is Anglo America. It's United States of America, United Kingdom, and the state of Israel, because Zionism is really the full term is British Zionism, right? So it's the Anglo Zionists versus the Chinese, and I think to a lot of people, it's not in the forefront of their mind. Like they say, okay, we're fighting Iran, but most people, it's not in their mind about China.
Yeah,
If and
Trump is trying to eliminate China's partners. It started with Maduro.
right.
Yeah, Cuba is collapsing right now. Um, and now Iran. Yeah, sure.
So like your viewers would know, but the average person that doesn't check, look deeper, it's not at the forefront of their mind that
Hmm.
it's China, right? But when it does become clear that we're fighting China because of the rise in tribalism, I think it could become very uncomfortable for Asians living in the United States or the West, because we among us we can tell, like, oh, that's a Chinese, that's a Korean, that's a Japanese. The average white person cannot tell the difference. Like when my family was sent to the concentration camps in the United States during World War II,
Hmm.
the Chinese didn't go to camp because they're not Japanese, but they were wearing signs, I'm not a Jap, I'm Chinese. So I'm wondering if I'm gonna have to wear a sign, not I'm not a chink, I'm not Chinese. But it's going in that direction. So also Neptune and Aries, war in the seas, and what are we seeing, right? The whole conflict in the Gulf, it's around the water routes. So you could also see like Panama Canal, the the Straits of Malacca. You could see more events where these key transit points are become battle zones. And yeah, so it basically it's all on you. So I think being a self-starter and being as self-sufficient as possible uh, is important. I mean, you could look at it practically, of course, right? But the benefit of looking at the signs and symbols and the cycles is it gives a reinforcement and clear indication that these are the themes during the period we're living in now.
Mm.
So I wanted to touch on Pluto and Aquarius. If Do you have
Yeah.
any comments? Do you have any comments on the Neptune in Aries and
Yeah,
Saturn in
I
Aries?
mean, you have when Neptune and Saturn go conjunct, one is about structure and authority, and the other one is more like the solvent of
Oh
that.
yeah, well, it's a classic thing that Neptune dissolves, right?
Mm.
Like people who have heavy Neptune Pisces energy, they could have degenerating diseases or Neptune. It's also associated with inflation, like your money could dissolve. But yeah, it's well, if you look at we touched on the Chinese feng shui, and we're in the last 20 years of the 180-year cycle. So we're in the decay phase, the last. So some people may look at the world, or if you look into the esoteric cycles, they'll say, it's so depressing. It's all bad. It's a natural cycle, right? It's birth, death. So you can't bring the new without finally closing out all the old stuff. And so all the structures are falling right now because that's where we're at. We're just at the cusp of starting something new. For a Chinese, it's the start of a new 180-year cycle in 2044. And the the tropical and Vedic astrology, it's also around 2040 to 2044. There are major cycles starting then. So we're in the last collapse phase of a period we've been in for a long time.
Yeah. And Pluto in Aquarius is also grinding everything down that doesn't serve us no longer.
Well, it's interesting because I was talking about the boomer generation. So
Hmm.
that's immediately after World War II. Those It was also the boomers are the first generation to get MK Ultra through TV. They were that's why they trust the news, you know. Um, they were the Pluto and Leo generation. So why is it significant that now we're in Pluto and Aquarius? It's because Aquarius and Leo are on the same axis, so it's opposing the energy of the boomers. So not just that like the boomers, you will see many of them now to start to pass away, right? But not only the people of the boomer generation, it's these boomer governments, which includes a lot of countries like I would think almost the majority of them, but you could look at Japan, you know, formed shortly after the war. Um, Constitution Constitution written in English by the occupying Americans and translated into Japanese. If you look at Twitter, there's a lot of Japanese people questioning what's been going on in Japan, and it's very interesting because in general, the the occulted history is very well documented in the West, but not in the East to really figure out what has been going on in China, Japan, the Koreas. There's much less documentation or things written about it, but now it's starting to come out, and it's very interesting. Israel also, so it's a boomer. I don't know what it was like. Was it 40, 49 or something like 47? China is 1949. So even China, which is basically, I think, number one in terms of overtaking America and taking the spot as the new global hegemon, they're in trouble. So I'm not saying that China is going to totally collapse, but the CCP government, I do believe it could even happen this year that there's some dramatic change and there's a new government there, which will actually benefit them because they're living under the baggage. I mean, they still have the communist insignias on their flag, and they call it the Chinese Communist Party. It's it's just a lot it's a lot of baggage. If they can get rid of that, it's like you're becoming more efficient and more able to take over the world, you know? So, yeah, it's so that explains, or that if you take that understanding of the the Pluto in Leo time, the Pluto in Leo governments, the Pluto and Leo generation passing away, and now it's Pluto and Aquarius. It explains a lot of the trends that are going on.
Yeah. So,
Um,
Masaki, our
mhm.
first hour is gone.
Yeah,
Shall we
yeah,
take a short break?
sure.
Yeah. And yeah, then we will see the patrons on the other side.